Most people think that to scale a coaching business to 30, 40, 50 grand a month, you need to hire a massive team, you need to spend your entire day managing them, and you need to run at 15% profit margins because you need to pay them all. Well, I'm here to prove you that you only need 2 people to scale your coaching business to 50 grand a month, and they don't need a degree, they don't need huge experience, and they don't need to be super expensive. They just need a functioning brain and to be hungry as hell. In fact, this is how much James made in December, which is supposed to be the slowest month for coaching, with 2 people in his team. And he doesn't have a crazy offer with crazy guarantees. He only spends 30 minutes a week to service his clients and get them results. He didn't have to spend tens of thousands in ads. He only spent 2K. And again, most importantly, he's done it with a team of 2 people, cheap people. The difficulty comes with finding, onboarding, and managing these 2 team members, which is exactly what I'm going to explain you in this video. Alongside, of course, the role that these people need to cover and the skills they need to have. I'm going to show you how to find them quickly, how to filter through them to find A players, how to align so that your business success becomes their success, and how to ensure that they overperform and stay motivated. So yeah, it's not another sexy ad strategy or some viral reel framework, blah, blah, blah. No, this is actually what moves the needle. And I've personally invested tens of thousands in the past 3 years in mentors and wasted time and money hiring the wrong people to come up with a framework that I'm going to share in this video. So take pen and paper and let me blow your business out the water. So the first person you want to hire is, of course, a video editor, but it's kind of boring. You probably have one already, and that's a topic for a completely different video that I'm going to release in the near future. What I want to focus on today is the second team member, which is more important because yes, you can get views through your organic content, nicely edited, and your ads, but at the end of the day, if you don't convert this attention into clients and calls, then what we're here for. The person that allowed James to book 30 calls and have a cost per call of like £50 is, of course, the setter. Now, chances are that you have a setter already or you're looking for setters, but it's kind of difficult to manage and they don't perform as well as they should. And as a result, your KPIs are kind of crap and your cost per call is too high for you to sustain it. And I'm sorry to break it down to you, but if the setter is not performing, it's not the setter's fault, it's always the business owner's fault. Because if the setter is not qualified, it's your fault because you hired the wrong setter. If the setter is qualified but is not performing, it's your fault because you're not managing them properly. If the calls are not qualified, it's your fault because you need to strengthen the middle funnel to nurture people more so that when they jump on calls, they are pre-sold. So it's always your fault. But don't worry about it, because in this video I'm going to show you when to hire a setter, because most people don't even need a setter just yet. And hiring a setter too soon might be a burden for your business. Where to find them, how to hire them, the onboarding process to go through, and this is fundamental because if you don't onboard them properly, don't set the expectations right at the beginning, it's gonna be all thrown in the bin, even if you find the best people. And then of course, how to manage them properly so that you don't waste too much of your time on a daily basis to manage them, because you don't wanna micromanage people. But at the same time, you ensure that they perform, they stay motivated, and they bring results and actually overperform. So let's start from when to hire a setter. Now just think about it, right? A setter gets 5 to 7% commission on the cash collected usually. Now, if you're making 5K a month cash collected, how the hell are you gonna pay the setter? Are you gonna pay them peanuts? So they're not gonna work 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 hours a day for $200. You might find super hungry ones that are actually motivated and good, and they're willing to jump on new offers because they're also at the beginning, but it's gonna be really rare to find them and keep them motivated. So if your coaching business or info offer isn't in that place between 10 to 15K a month dollars, then you need to get there before you even hire a setter. And until then, you should do appointment setting yourself. But don't be scared, because if you have a solid content presence, you have a nice nurturing system, it's not gonna be that hard and time demanding to convert people. And you can easily get to 10 to 15K a month if you're charging the right price within 1 month or 2. Now, if you're going to do appointment setting yourself, I recommend you watch this video right here somewhere, because I break down exactly how to do appointment setting effectively in 2026. Because as you probably realize, there are so many people doing appointment setting right now that you need to be kind of different to stand out and actually convert people. But the 10 to 15K threshold is not the only requirement that you need to onboard a setter. You also need a good content presence, both on Instagram and YouTube, because again, you need to nurture these prospects to get them to show up and easily convert on the call, because otherwise the setter is going to be thrown off by the fact that he books lots of calls but nobody converts. Or he's going to be thrown off because you get lots of leads, but it's so hard to book them in because they don't trust the person, right? They don't trust you. You need bridges from Instagram to YouTube, from YouTube to Instagram DMs, and from Instagram to Instagram DMs. You want call to action to get people into DMs, because yes, you can book appointments from warm outbound, so reaching out to new followers, but it's kind of nice for the setter to have both warm outbound and also inbound coming in. You need at least 50 to 150 leads per week, so roughly at least 10 followers per day. Doesn't matter if it's from organic, doesn't matter if it's from paid, you need those people coming in. Otherwise, again, it doesn't make sense to have a setter because there's nothing to work on. If you don't have enough leads because you're relying mainly on cold outbound, then you can still get a setter as long as you're making enough money and maybe provide a base fee for them to send all the outbounds. Or alternatively, if you're not making enough money and you still want to save some time, you can hire a VA only to send the first lines and the follow-ups. But this is the only scenario where you want to hire a VA as a setter. Never, ever, ever hire an untrained person who's doing lots of different things that is not specifically trained for appointment setting in the DMs and doesn't have any sales background. You need at least 5 to 10 case studies. Otherwise, it's going to be so hard again to build the trust required to book people in and close people on the call. You want to have a price point of at least $2,000 because otherwise the commissions are going to be so low that it's going to be hard for the setter to be motivated, because even if you close a deal, oh yeah, sound, $50, what am I gonna do with that? And you need to sell at least 7-8 units a month, otherwise the math doesn't work. And this is something that most people overlook, but you actually need to be good at setting yourself. That's why you should do appointment setting yourself until you get to 10, 15, maybe even 20 grand a month. Because if you're not good at setting, then you probably need to hire a setter manager as well, because you're not gonna be able to manage the setter and understand what the setter needs to do. So again, if you're not that good at setting just yet, I recommend you watch my other videos on this channel and actually work in the trenches yourself until you become good at it. I know it's a lot of requirements, but really this is what you need if you don't want to make your life a nightmare later on. With that out of the way, we can go ahead and hopefully you fall into this category and we can go ahead and see how to actually find and hire setters. Please, please, please do not go on Upwork or Fiverr to hire setters. You're gonna find at the bottom of the barrel. I've hired people from both platforms in the past and I've always been disappointed because they're simply usually not trained and experienced enough. They're just probably VAs turned setters by mistake. Instead, you want to go on Instagram, but not just like Instagram and you look for setters. No, you want to go where the setters are concentrated, where the best setters, trained setters, are concentrated. And guess where it is? Where the setter coaches are. There are so many people offering setter coaching to 9-to-5ers or people in uni or in high school. So just find these coaches and just send them your application form and ask them to kindly share it in their communities, and be willing to offer a small compensation when you hire a good setter from their community. Just a little incentive for them to help you find the best people. If you have a solid online presence and a good branding, it's a good idea to also post your application form in your stories. By the way, the application form is going to be in the description of this video. It's a template. You can download it and tweak it for yourself. But sharing in stories is, again, a nice way to get people to sign up and get as many people as possible to fill out the application form. Again, because you want to leverage the community aspect of setting and these setter communities and setter training communities, you want to ask your friends setters. So chances are you have other people in info or who have coaching businesses and they have setters. So ask them to ask their setters if they know people who are looking for offers and are actually trained and hungry. Usually people hang out with people who are similar to them. So if someone has a good setter, then you're likely to find another good setter around them. That's how I find most of my best setters. I just ask my best setters, hey, do you know anybody? As simple as that. And yeah, if you really cannot find a setter after all this, you can reach out to me on Instagram and I can see if I can help. Like I said, you're not gonna send messages around, you're going to share an application form. Again, it's gonna be in the description of this video, and this is what it looks like and what you should have in it. So you should have a very clear description at the top, explaining exactly the benefits and the commission structure and what the offer is about. And then you wanna ask, of course, a bunch of details. Instagram handle, where are they based? And I'm gonna show you in a second what countries you should exclude and what countries you should prioritize, as well as other metrics and other parameters to use to filter through people who fill out your application form. Generally speaking, you want someone who's been trained, so who's invested into their setting journey, that shows that they are committed, and who's been on another offer before and have on-field experience in your specific niche. However, if you are more towards a 10K a month threshold, then you might wanna accept working with people who are hungry, but at the beginning. So just a bunch of normal questions, goals, driver, why should we hire you? And then, and this is really important and not many people do it, you want to add at the bottom of your application form, and again, if you duplicate this, you're gonna have it by default and you can just see the replies that the applicants respond to these messages. And then, and this is extremely important and many people miss this out, you want to have 3-4 messages, 3-4 scenarios, and you want to see how they respond, how they react to those scenarios. And that's why you need to be good at setting, because if you're not good at setting, you don't even know what they should respond to these messages, right? Now, if you duplicate the application form that is going to be in the description of this video, you're going to have these messages already templated, but ideally, you want to have here some messages that you often get, some objections that you often get, some resistance that your prospects have in the DMs. Again, that's why you should be doing appointment setting yourself before you onboard a setter. You need to know what objections you get, what are the struggles and obstacles that you get in the appointment setting sequence to be able to train a person to overcome those obstacles. So here I have a bunch of questions, a bunch of messages that I ask the setter to respond to. So I'm getting clients through referrals. Instagram have been a bit slow in the last period. So how should they respond to this? The best way to respond is, nice that you're getting referrals, means that your offer is working, or means that you have a good service, means that you have a good fulfillment. What do you mean by Instagram is a bit slow, right? So most bad setters are going to respond with, oh, okay, I can help you. Right? No, it's not what it is. You need to dig deeper. Also because I specifically say here early in the conversation. The second message is, I want to get into high ticket sales and I'm exploring different options, but maybe trying my own first. You see already the objection, and most bad setters are gonna be like, oh, no, don't start on your own, you're gonna fail, you need someone helping you out. Good setters are going to respond, sure, yeah, okay, fair enough. And how long have you been looking to get into high ticket sales for? Or what have you tried so far? Or what resources have you consumed so far, right? You want to, again, dig deeper into what they've tried to make them understand that if they keep just doing what they're doing, they're never going to actually start, because that's when you build leverage to book the call. The third one is a tricky one, and really few setters get it right. If they do, they are killers and they really have a lot of experience. If they don't, I still get them on a call if they did everything else right, because again, this is pretty high level. But yeah, I'd like to chat, but I'm quite busy for the second half of December with family and stuff. Can we reconnect early next year? This is what the message says. Now, most setters are going to be like, yeah, sure, I'll just send you the calendar and we can book something in for early next year, right? They're going to lose frame and get the prospect choose a time for 2-3 weeks down the line, and then guess what's going to happen? They're not going to show up. Instead, what you want to do, you want to take frame back. So you want to say, yeah, sure, we could book something for early next year, but my calendar is literally packed for the first 2-3 weeks of January. However, I'm free on Friday at X time or Y time. Can you jump on at that time? That's how they should respond. And then the last thing is, of course, a Loom video. Now, I specifically asked for a personalized Loom video. If they send a non-personalized video, they cannot even take 2 minutes of their time recording a video for you. It means that they're not committed enough and they're gonna be lazy throughout the entire process. Once you download, tweak, and send out everywhere the application form, you can start skimming through the applications. Now, you should get at least 50 applicants to really have a nice pool to find people. And the first thing you want to see is where they are from. Simply for logistic perspectives, you want to exclude people from third world countries. Simply because if you're sending 100 outbound messages, 150 outbound messages, which is really above the limit per day from India, you are going to get banned within a couple of days. I can tell you that for sure. Then look at the responses they gave in the messages and exclude people who clearly don't know what they're doing with appointment setting. Exclude people who have like 300 things going on, like, yes, I have a job, I go to uni, and then this and then that, because they're gonna be overwhelmed and they're not gonna be able to put in the work and have speed to lead. Then you watch the Loom and you want to exclude people speaking about how consistent they are in the gym because they don't have anything else to show up for. Exclude people who are not good English speakers, unfortunately, because they're gonna make too many typos. Unless they're really good, exclude people who uploaded a generic Loom, right? Again, if they cannot even take the time to record a 2-minute video, they're probably not the right fit. Exclude offers. So I've been in this offer for a month and then on this offer for a month. chances are that if they jumped from one offer to the other and they're mentioning in their job application, then it wasn't the offer problem, it was their problem, and you're just gonna be another offer that's gonna churn. Exclude overconfident people like like very superficial people, because those people are gonna be very hard to coach. They're probably not gonna show up on calls, and they're not gonna be like disciplined enough to do properly appointment setting, because again, they just have a too big ego. Exclude immature people. I don't like to set age boundaries, but it's actually pretty hard to find good people below 17 years old. They're usually too immature to take the offer seriously. I never hired a good female setter. I might be wrong, prepare to prove me wrong, but I usually personally prioritize men. And exclude shiny object seeker. I want to become a closer in 2 months. I just started setting, but I want to become a closer in 2 months. And then I want to open my closing agency, and then I want to become a setter manager. And then I tried SMA and then crypto. Like, again, too many things going on. They're just like shiny objects hopper, and they're not going to be a good fit because they're not going to stick to the company in long term. They're just going to try and seek the next shiny objects if they don't make 25 million by tomorrow. After you filter them, you want to reach out to the best ones and book a 15-minute call with each one. You could do group calls, but I'm not a huge fan of them because you want really people to open up and share their goals instead of like being in competition with other people. And these are pretty much the questions that you should go over in the interview. Where are you from? Are you setting full time? What made you start setting? What's your previous experience? Blah, blah, blah. If your offer is B2B, you want them to have experience in B2B because usually B2B is more difficult than B2C. Of course, like I said, you want people who have experience. You want to see their KPIs, and if you don't even have KPIs and they were on an offer, that's a huge red flag because they either lied or the KPIs are so bad that they don't want to show them, or they're not even tracking KPIs, which is probably the worst thing that a setter can do. Of course, you want to understand why they would leave the offer that they're on or why they left to understand if they're going to leave yours as well. Of course, the time zone needs to align, and you also want to see how they see yourself in the next year. Because again, if they're looking to become closers after 4 months, you don't want to look for someone who's only going to be on the offer for 4 months. Ideally, you want someone who's going to be at least on your offer for 6, 10, 12 months. And you want to know their financial goal in the next 3 months to see if it's realistic and if it aligns with your business. Again, you simply break down the KPIs. If you're paying them 5%, how much are you going to have to make to get them to the revenue that they want to achieve? Is it realistic? Yes? No? And we're going to see how to align goals in a minute in the onboarding process. Before that, after you have jumped on calls with the best ones, you want to find the 3 to 4 best ones, again, according to how many applications you got at the beginning in the first place. And you want to do some role plays with them to actually see if they're good, besides, being well-spoken and all the other stuff that we went through. After you do a role play, you're going to have to choose the best one. Now, there are people who are onboarding 2 setters, but especially if your offer is quite at the beginning, you're making 10, 15, 20 grand a month, you probably don't have enough leads for them both, and it becomes quite complicated to split leads and everything. So I suggest instead you onboard one, but you don't burn the bridges with the other ones, or with the other one was good. And you test the one that you onboard for 2 weeks. But enough talk, perfect. Now you know where to find them and how to hire them. And you're probably in front of the best applicant. Now, how do you onboard him properly? And this is the part that most people get wrong. And this is where, if you mess it up, you set everything else up for disaster. We're going to break it down into 3 parts: alignment, expectations, and logistics. The first thing you need is, of course, a clear set of SOPs for the setter to have clarity on all the processes, KPI tracking, script, follow-ups, labeling chats, pre-call sequence, and all that. Then you need clarity on their goal in the next 6 months and see if it aligns with the company goal. Of course, hopefully at this point it does. So after that, you just break the numbers down and you reverse engineer the process to get to the inputs that they need to put in order for you and them to get to their goals. Okay, so let's say that you want to get to 100K a month in the next 6 months, and the setter wants to get to 5K a month in the next 6 months, and you're paying them 5%. Perfect, there's alignment. Now, let's say that you're charging 6K. To get to 100K a month, you need to onboard 17 clients. If you're closing 1 call out of 3, so 33% closing rate, you need 50, 51, 52 calls to get to 17 clients. Meaning the setter needs to book 1 to 2 calls every day. And then you look at their KPIs and your KPIs, hopefully if you have them, and you see how many messages they need to send per day and how many follow-ups they need to send per day to get to that amount of calls, to book at least 1 to 2 calls per day. And usually it's going to be about 60 to 80 messages per day if you have a 1 to 2% booking rate on new followers, for example. So now they know that if they want to get to 5K a month, they need to get you to 100K a month. And in order for them to get you to 100K a month, they need to send at least 80 messages per day. This is how you align their goals with your goals. And then of course, after you break down all the KPIs, you need to show them how you're gonna ensure that those KPIs are hit, how you're going to ensure that the closing rate stays 33% or above, how you're going to make sure that they get at least 80 leads per day, how you're going to make sure that people show up on the call, and all that stuff. A little tip for you to get them even more invested and passionate about the position: open up and share why you started this business in the first place and your story, so that they're gonna get emotionally attached to your mission and the company story. Once there's alignment, you need to set expectations, because if no expectations are set, they're just gonna do whatever they want, and guess what's gonna happen? Everything is going to fall apart. And it's much easier to set expectations clear from the beginning than to try and recover situations where the setter is lacking, because you already lost frame and they already went cool. If no expectations are set, they're not gonna fill out the end of day reports, which I'm gonna show you in a second, and I'm gonna share with you in the description of this video. They're not going to track KPIs, they're not going to jump on calls, they're not gonna be fast with replying to leads, and you're going to lose money and time. So set expectations not only around the KPIs that they need to hit, but also around the core beliefs of the company. So being on time, being ruthless, following up ruthlessly, being hungry, overachieving, overperforming, and you need to make sure that they uphold to those standards. I know we covered a lot already, but before we dive into management, let me share with you a bunch of logistic things that you need to go over when onboarding a setter. Because if you've never onboarded one, everything's gonna be pretty complicated and overwhelming. They need to sign the contract. You need to send them the meeting invites for the group meetings, as you're gonna see in the management part. You wanna give them access to your Slack, Discord, or whatever platform you use to communicate with your team. You need to give them access to your calendar, so Calendly, GoHello, or whatever you use to book calls. You want to give them access to a successful conversation library so they can see the flow and how you or your previous setter were booking appointments in the past. I personally like to create a Notion dashboard with all the links and all the resources they need. Of course, the SOPs as covered already, the script or framework, access to the account. You want to maybe set up a workflow for them. For example, okay, you need to send 80 warm outbound messages per day. I'm going to give you 80 followers at least per day through ads and organic. Now, because there is a limit of messages you can send per hour to keep the account healthy, you're going to send 10 messages per hour. Okay, so essentially just break down the workflow that they should follow. So how they should set up their day to make sure that they are efficient and they can hit the KPIs. You want to show them the KPI sheet and give them access to the KPI sheet, of course, the tagging system to label chats, and all the resources that you have to nurture people in the DMs, and all the canned voice notes, so pre-made voice notes. If you don't have setting resources, so resources to nurture people in the DMs, so personalized resources like lead magnets and case study breakdowns to nurture people in the DMs, and you don't have canned voice notes, you need to create them to make the conversation as personable as possible. Because again, you're gonna have someone doing appointment setting for you. So in order for you to stand out from thousands of other coaches out there offering the same service that you are providing, you need to have to go a bit the extra mile in the DMs to make sure that the prospect understands that you care about them and their results. And you can achieve that through resources and voice notes. We made it to the final part, management. So first thing first, you want to jump on a call with them once a day or once every other day, at least for 30 minutes, just to go over some conversations, just to see where we're at, to see the KPIs and see what you or them need to improve. However, if they're hitting KPIs, they are booking calls, they are overperforming and review chats, and they're all pretty good, you can lower the cadence as you go on with the collaboration. If they're not hitting KPIs, you want to get them on an urgent call to realign. Do not give third chances. I know it's hard to fire people on the spot like that, but if they mess up once, okay, fine, realign, and if they mess up again on the same thing, don't give them third chances. Otherwise, they're just gonna be, okay, cool, I'm never gonna get fired, so I can do whatever I want. No, keep the frame and don't give third chances. That's why you should always have people in the back end to quickly churn and replace your setter in case they really mess up. Like I said, you want them to fill out an end of day report so that they can kind of be accountable, and you have a report. You can set up automations to get a report so that you don't have to constantly look at the KPIs. You just get a report. And in the end of the report, of course, they need to include their name. I mean, I have name and client name because I'm managing multiple setters for multiple clients, but you want to know the auto messages sent, follow-ups, new conversations, email messages. So essentially just a recap of the KPIs that they hit that day and approximate time spent. But most importantly, lead flow, lead quality, why bad lead quality, and lead temperature. And if there is a specific ad or post that is bringing a considerable amount of leads. The reason why you want to know these information is because you want to adjust marketing as soon as possible, as quickly as possible. So there are going to be more information in the end of week report, but you want the end of the report to be thorough with lead quality, lead temperature, lead flow, and everything, so that you can adjust ads and content to make sure that you always ensure the maximum quality, flow, and temperature. The end of week report is mainly for content. So you want the setter, who's the person who's spending the most time literally with your prospects, to give you a summary of the common current situation, common desires, common pain points, to find a bunch of angles to use in your content so that you can pre-handle those objections and attract more of those qualified people. As mentioned already, you can create Zapier automations to send automatic notifications to Slack whenever the setter fills out the end of the report. But the most important thing is the KPI tracking sheet, and I'm gonna give you these templates. It's gonna be in the description of this video, and essentially, as you can see, this is the KPI sheet that I use. Seems pretty complicated, but literally they have everything, it's super clear, and you have a summary every 10 days. So again, you can see the KPIs not only at the end of the month, but every 10 days. So again, you can adjust the KPIs as soon as possible. So again, every time you jump on a call with your setter, you're going to see, oh, okay, our conversation to booking rate is pretty low. We need to improve that. It's like below 10%. We need to increase that and get it to 15-20%. The follow to conversation rate is a bit low. So we need to improve our follow-ups or our first liner to make sure that we get more responses and get more people to open a conversation. When you look at KPIs, don't just blame them. See if there is something that you can do to improve and make their life easier. Maybe you can record a voice note. Maybe there is a bottleneck and people always ghost you after a message. Okay, can you change that message, or can you make that message become a voice note so that you increase the chance of people responding? If prospects always have a specific objection, can you record a voice note to handle their objection? Can you record a resource to handle their objection? How can you change your profile or ads or content to make sure that those objections don't even arise? You are still in control of the marketing side. Yes, they are helping you with setting, but it's your responsibility to ensure proper lead flow, temperature, and nurturing. We really covered a lot, but now you know exactly the 2 people you need to scale your business to 50K a month. You don't need a copywriter, you don't need a creative director, you don't need anything. You just really need a really good editor, dialed in editor, and I'm gonna show you in one of my next videos how to hire and train and manage a proper editor, and most importantly, a setter. And now you know where to find them, how to hire them, how to onboard them, and how to manage them properly. I hope this video was valuable. I mentioned multiple times the importance of you being a good setter. So I'm gonna link here a video that I made on appointment setting. You should watch it, and you should get your setter to watch it as well. So click it now.